Good morning. Welcome to the 24th of August 2020. And today we are discussing again on this virtual coffee session the issue of the professional journalist versus citizen journalist or pedestrian journalist. Where do you stand? I was intrigued this morning to read Dr. Magaisa saying something about this very matter. Today, Mr. Hopu Chingono's case is going to be heard in court, and this is his bail application. What is your take on that? The bail is today. The issues are not known by many, and what shall we do about the content that is needed, and who is to decide what matters, what doesn't matter. So I wait for your own views and to decide on this issue of journalist. What is the profession? What does it entail? And how best can we harness the profession so that those who need to know can know better? This is my message this morning on what is being said out there. This is what you find on Hopewell Chingono. He's a journalist described as such by many. And the Murimu C10 ku Twitter. Yes, I wish I knew what C10 is. Then I would join it. So Shepard, what do you say? Do you think sharing information is part of disguising it? Do you think sharing conversations is healthy? Sharing conversations about what a journalist is, what is not, do you think is healthy? There are many people who would rather call somebody names, say you are C10, as if they know what C10 is. If there was intelligence in the market for news, then how far would we be? Shepard, why don't you say your point? You have seen me or heard from me. Why don't you make your judgment rather than be a bridge of what others say, not what you are saying? Why don't you say what you want to say? Morning, Tin Chris. How are you this morning? Isn't it the case that most of the time it is easy to repeat what others say than say what you want to say, based on the same facts that you know? Good morning, Stabile. Shepard, why is it easy for you to say what others are saying and still have the time to type what others are saying, not what you want to say? On Hopewell, what are the facts? Does this case provoke you to talk about journalism? Elizabeth, good morning. How are you this morning? The focus today is pedestrian versus professional journalist, or citizen journalist versus professional journalist. Is there a difference? If so, what is it? And let's look at that. What is a journalist before we even go further? And who knows what a journalist is? And those who wear the professional cap, do they live up to the expectation? If so, how do we measure those who are good in the craft and those who are not. And Sambata Pure says, it is difficult to find journalists in the contemporary or professional field. The field of citizen journalism is tapped into and given the ethics can prove a better portion. I don't know what he's saying, but he's saying something. And Mandivenga says we need a broader exposure. It helps us understand issues better. Do you believe that we need a broader perspective? Do you think we need to be able to talk about journalism in a holistic manner? If so, who is to say, who is to decide? Who is to decide this? And this is Tapua in a group called Towards Media Excellence. So that's Tapua. And so I see Mabaso is saying something. What is Mabaso saying? It is healthy sharing information, data. I was even surprised about it, knowing you. I know someone as being economic with the truth. I was just letting you know in case you didn't see it. Not that I believe in it. Take no offense. No, thanks for raising it, Shepherd. It's important that we talk about it. And I responded on Twitter in the interest of provoking a discussion about what should be a subject for Twitter. If I talk to you, Shepherd, and I take this conversation and write an article about what you have said today, is it bad for people to know that your views are important? That a journalist who publishes something without the knowledge and consent of the people in the audio, what do you take of that, Shepherd? Imagine somebody says he's a professional, then goes forward to say, I am going to publish anyway what I've been privileged to have without the consent of the person he may have received the information from. It's about falsehood. Mabasa says, ZBC will be closed by now. If it's about falsehood, ZBC will be closed now. What if the people who work for the ZBC genuinely believe that they are doing a good job, that they're doing what they should do, and you believe that is not? They are true journalists in the field, even though they are few and far between. Adetunji says, the question is, what is the level of investment made in the field of journalism in Africa? How can you invest in passion? Adetunji, has anyone invested in you sharing your wisdom here? Apart from South Africa, which media landscape is meaningful in the rest of Africa? Are journalists not constantly arrested and killed? But in most of those countries that are polarized, if you ask what is a journalist, some people in government see a journalist as a terrorist, somebody who wants to unseat them in government because they actually believe they can do a better job as journalists. How many journalists have transformed themselves into political actors? How many citizens have used the writing, the voice, and other means to position themselves to be the custodians of what is right, what is not, to be the custodians of what corruption is and corruption is not? But the only difference is that they use corruption as a weapon to be able to achieve a different end. So Adetunji, when you're talking about journalists or professions in a polarized environment, in a divided environment, What is it that we can learn from polarity and diversity of opinion? What you call the truth need not be the truth to somebody else. Is that correct, Mr. Adetunji? How many people actually are messengers of falsehoods, but they think that falsehood is actually the truth, and they have no way or no one to be able to remind them of what their duty is as professionals. What is the duty of a professional? What is the duty of a citizen? And who is going to invest in that unless those who believe in the craft promote and protect it by doing the best they can with the resources that are available? Others will then follow. So who is to decide what is a journalist? What is not a journalist? And how do we distinguish trees from the woods? So, Mr. Adetunji, perhaps you can speak to that and see why it is that it's difficult to find a common thread, a common message of what it is that a journalist should do in an environment polluted by so many fragmented voices, so many opinions on the same thing. So if you are watching out there, what is your take? Professional versus citizen or pedestrian. I'm using pedestrian just to provoke you to say something about this craft called journalism. What are the entry costs? Are the entry barriers so low that anyone can wake up in the morning, tweet, and make news? Or what is required to build a profession? What is a profession? If you look at doctors, and you look at nurses, you look at lawyers, you look at footballers, are there rules that guide their conduct? If there are rules, why are rules required? So let's hear your voice, and then I can speak to that. The idea was just to provoke you to think and act differently. When we talk about this craft called journalism, then we can look at other crafts. Journalists should have qualifications, well trained to do the job. What if the trainers are not equipped to train? What if the trainers are part of the disputes? Who should train? Where should wisdom come from? So, Elizabeth, who should have the wisdom? And how should that wisdom be communicated? Wellington, good morning. How are you this morning? I hope you are finding the show of interest to you. So let's talk to Elizabeth. There are many people who are qualified, but actually their performance does not relate to what they write, what they say. What shall be done in that case? What is a journalist then? What if I fake the qualifications and I can actually think critically and positively on issues? What makes you think that the people who are qualified for the right reasons and are qualified to educate, inform, and entertain you? What if the qualifications actually create a separation between people? Some people will then try to protect an extinct profession and not work to prove that the profession actually is alive and well. Who should decide? Who should train the journalist? And if we have the trainers, where are they? Why are they not facing up on the issues of the day? Who do you think, Elizabeth, is more equipped to train others when the trainers themselves are missing in action? Wellington, what is your take on the topic? What is your take so far on the conversation around this? I can say it's a conversation because some people are using text to be able to respond and speak out and voice what they need to voice. Some people are quite silent and say nothing, but privately in WhatsApp groups, there are menace in WhatsApp groups, voicing up issues without testing, making opinions fact, making superstition fact, speculation fact, imagination fact, and at the end of the day, nobody can tell what is fact and what is fiction. How many professionals are part of the fiction manufacturing systems where you end up having a falsehood dressed up as fact, and you end up having a qualification to support it, so that those who are unqualified will believe those who purport to have certificates and talk to things that they actually have no clue about. Hello,
Good morning, Mr. Mawere.
how are you?
I'm fine and you. I'm fine and you. How was your weekend as well?
Not too bad.
Oh yes, oh yes. Same here, same here. I see you're discussing a very important topic here.
Yeah, I think there's some distortion in your. Okay, go ahead.
I was watching on Facebook. I think I need to just stop this thing. Sorry, my apologies. Let me just stop this. All right, I think that should be fine. Is it improved?
Yeah, there's still some distortion. I don't know what it is. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
All right.
Do you have two devices?
Oh yes.
Hello?
I think I've solved that problem now.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
All right. I just wanted to say that thank you again for this topic. I think it's very important that we understand the importance of journalism and how journalism affects almost every discourse, because it's intimately involved with the dissemination of information into the public domain. And obviously, when people identify themselves, they run the risk of polarizing opinions. I see you say identity politics is a weapon for many who may seek the protection of a profession that is daily becoming irrelevant and redundant. So I suppose you are raising questions of journalism as a profession in the past and in the future, and going forward, what it's going to look like, or what it may look like, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Mawere.
I can hear you.
Yes. So I joined the show maybe a little bit late. I don't know what you had been discussing before, but I see Adetunji Omotola says there are true journalists in the field, even though they are few and far between. The question is, what is the level of investment made in the field of journalism in Africa? Apart from South Africa, which media landscape is meaningful to the rest of Africa? Are journalists not constantly arrested and killed? Elizabeth Linetti says there should be a national council for journalists. For example, there are so many people who can call themselves nurses, but they should be a registered nurse who is registered with NMC to be able to practice as a nurse. I think it should be same with journalism. So I think Elizabeth here is raising issues of registration, validity of probably qualification, and etc. etc. Or maybe an issue of ethics as well.
Let's if you talk to Elizabeth and go further deeper, what if you have the national council And the National Council is comprised of human beings like you and me, who are
Yes.
all partisan in outlook, who also have their own biases. And what if that profession is put into disrepute by people failing to voice up on what they want their journalists to be? There are many people who are called bad politicians, but you find that they are not bad because the people who they are supposed to save are the very people who make them bad. How many people in small WhatsApp groups would rather have someone be admin so that they have someone to blame as admin? And they don't want to take any responsibility for building a platform of their own choice. So how many people are registered and are operating in terms of the rules? Even if you look at FIFA, how many corruption scandals have visited FIFA? How many corruption scandals has visited many organizations, many churches? Yet there are rules. What we learn from all those experiences, and how come we are not sharing them? How many scandals have come through architects, lawyers, quantity surveyors, all these professional groups, teachers, nurses? What does it remind us? That behind the qualification, there is a human being. A human being who is mortal, who is fallible, may not be rational. So whoever you appoint to supervise other human beings, you may discover that what you have created is just another bureaucracy. And that has nothing to do than taking fees from those professionals so that they can survive as admin rather than save the people they are supposed to save. So Elizabeth, they stated something that training could be, and the rules and governance could be also another avenue to limit this problem, so that those who are certified can be the only ones who practice. What if those who are certified are the worst journalists? Should we force people to follow them or look up to them just because they hold a qualification and just because they are registered and they are members of a professional body? What is it that the public should do? If you have should meet, invite, and discriminate among flies wanting to partake in the meat? What should be done? Where shall wisdom come from? Is it a worthwhile conversation? So that's one. Elizabeth is speaking up, stepping forward. Others are just silent, say nothing, do nothing, and expect the world to change because they do nothing and they see nothing. You can go ahead.
Yes, that is definitely true. It's very important because does that mean that if one is certified as a journalist, they are going to do the best job in journalism? Does that mean that when one is not certified or qualified to work as a journalist or to disseminate information into the public domain, they should not disseminate any information? So those are questions that also arise from what Elizabeth mentioned about certification and being part of some type of a journalists becoming part of some kind of a national council of journalists. But then as we have discussed before, there are issues also that arise on the use of digital media by any citizen to disseminate any type of information. in real time. So it can be news. Maybe I just happen to be passing through Santon Mall or Santon City, and then I see some kind of fight between a citizen and a policeman, and I take a picture, and then I write a caption under that picture, and I tweet immediately what that this is happening. Is that not real news? If it's a crime being committed and I tweet it like that, is that not breaking news? But I am not certified to be a journalist. I'm not trained to be a journalist, but I've witnessed events that that I've also communicated to the general public immediately as they are breaking or happening. Is that not journalism? So those are some of the questions that we get to think about. Who should disseminate information? Why? When and how should they do it?
So that's another variation. And some people would want certification first. And I go to a doctor's office and I ask for his certificate and membership of professional organization before treatment, or I go to the doctor believing he's a doctor. And even if he puts his fake certificates, who am I to question whether they are genuine or fake? But the quality of a good doctor will only follow his actions. If he has many people victimized by him or her, and they still come back for more treatment, then that's all the news you want. Talk about the journalist, talk about the doctor, talk about the patient, but don't go and ask the doctor whether he is a cure to death. If he tells you that you come to me, I will stop death, then you know the doctor is a liar, whether trained or not. But he'll try his best to do the best that he knows, but it may not be the best. So, so Elizabeth is there, and there are other people who are listening, who are watching, and perhaps they can tell us what their own view is, so that together we can find better answers than we can as individuals. What is it that is required to be talked about, to be discussed, so that we can be able to test against a standard that we think should be journalism? Is it balanced story? Are both sides of the dispute, if any, given an opportunity to be in the same story? Or one would jump to give the narrative of one party to a dispute, and that becomes the Bible. That becomes the basis to test what is going on. How many journalists would be patient to find a comment from the other side? Or they just say according to sources, but the main storyline is based on one narrative, untested, and that becomes the fact. If I say you are corrupt, then you must be corrupt because I say so. If I say you're a murderer, you must be a murderer just because I say so. And if I'm qualified as a journalist, then the public will believe that I'm saying this because I am a holder of certain certificates and I'm a member of certain council. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, that is very true, Mr. Mawere. Who has a monopoly on knowledge or on truth? Is it the journalist? Because, like you say, because they have qualifications to say that okay, they are qualified as a journalist. But isn't the pursuit of journalism about truth and fact? So, and also opinion that is derived from news or from events as they happen. Feature articles that analyze events, that analyze issues, and contribute to the development agenda. Now, my thinking is should we not start, or should people not start having a discussion around how journalism can now be, how a new form of journalism can now be validated by training? Since it seems that uh, practicing journalists are validated by training. What kind of training or new training can be introduced for the new journalist, particularly the citizen journalist?
Okay. So that's the and Elizabeth has come back. You can take a picture and share, but if you are not trained, you can mess up so many lives because you don't know how to publish issues. That's what do you say to that? That's Elizabeth.
Yes,
Elizabeth, that you are ignorant and therefore you are bound to make mistakes.
yes, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is right. Is both right, and maybe I may also beg to differ on this. What she says is that you can take a picture and you can share it, but if you are not trained, you can mess up so many lives because you don't know how to publish issues. So I guess that is where the issue of ethics, the issue of training for journalists come through. They must have ethos or ways in which they can verify information before they put it out in the public domain. But what we're saying, Elizabeth, is things have changed. People who are not journalists are taking those pictures. People who are not journalists are inevitably disseminating information. So, how best then can we equip the citizen journalist who has taken matters upon, who has taken it upon themselves to be a self-appointed journalist without the training that you think that you say they require? But what should we do? Because it's already happened right now as we speak. Someone is tweeting, someone is posting something on Facebook, someone is sending a bulk email, disseminating information into the public domain. What should we do with that person? What type of training can that person get?
Yeah. So if you take that and say to Elizabeth, what if you are trained and you mess up? What if the people who call themselves journalists are the very people who have a record of messing up? What if those who are trained behave as if they are not trained? What if those who are part of professional bodies behave as if they are not part of any community? What should happen? And if you take pictures and share, do you need to be trained to share? What happened is what happened. And you are just recording fact. Do you need to be trained to tell a story of fact? I went to a court and this is what happened. And I just tell the story as it is. Do I need to be trained to tell a story as I have seen it? If I was at the scene of an accident and I have to do an affidavit, do I need to be trained to tell the story of what happened? Or some people create an accident and write about an accident they don't know anything about. In the name of being trained, in the name of being regulated. So how many of the people we know have ceased to be journalists, but they have a badge of journalism? It's not just journalists, but how many people pretend to be what they are not, but they got the certificate? So, Elizabeth, what is it that you are saying that would then distinguish those who are trained and those who are not, and permit the conclusion that those who are not trained are more likely to mess up than those who are trained. Where do we get that data to confirm this? Or this is what you are just thinking as an individual without testing that assumption with real life facts? How many of us conclude based on what we think we know of what the world contains, forgetting that the world is bigger than what can visit one individual?
Yes, certainly, Mr. M. That is very true. I think there is a lot that we need to learn as citizens, and or maybe we need to have some kind of, or to negotiate some kind of understanding that can be shared by different things on what a journalist is and what they should be and what they should not be. Because you raise very valid points there in response to Elizabeth's comment when you say that even journalists who are trained have been known to report information that is not true or fact. They have been known to be unethical in their conduct. So at the end of the day, it's about people either doing their job or doing their duty as part of active citizenship, to report issues, to analyze issues, to formulate opinion and inform policy discourse, or just general contribution to society. Janet also mentioned that a lot of pictures and videos are self-explanatory, which means one does not necessarily need a caption or subtitles to understand a picture or a video. Sometimes a picture is a picture, it is what it is. Interpretation is subjective. So what should we be doing to shift the minds of citizens in terms of how they view journalism? Shift the minds of citizens in terms of how they should disseminate any information on digital media streets. What kind of training should we be thinking about as citizens, as citizen journalists? What is the next way where to from here in terms of journalism?
No, it's just also for not just journalists, but for all professionals. When you look at society, there are different professions. Some of them have very different actors who do the best they can, and that celebrates the profession they are in. Artists, they give awards, they celebrate those who do well. Some even nominate and identify the people who do excellent work. Journalists are also, they become award winners. But what is it that we are doing to follow these professional people with a view just to learning about what one has to do to excel, to be the best in the craft, to be the best golfer, to be the best golfer? What do you need to do so you can learn?
Yes, that is very true. I agree that this is not only about just journalism, it's just an example, but surely there is room for improvement in various professions as they evolve and as times change, as our cultures also change, the way we do things, as we also adapt to new normals. Like, for example, this COVID-19 scenario that was probably unforeseen in the last 6 months. people did not know that there will be lockdowns of the magnitude that we experienced. So education, even educational systems are being forced to adapt to new normals. Kids are now learning online from home. Human interaction has been reduced to the most to bare minimum or up to absolute need physical contact. But now everything is going virtual. So what does this mean? We have to start thinking about new ways of addressing things. We have to adapt. Like they say,
And then,
maybe or die.
and then Janet says, I think the discussion needs to move forward from what is a journalist. Already there is a different opinion. She is saying the discussion. Whose discussion? If she's part of the discussion, she just mentions what she needs to mention. From what is a journalist to how we can report news responsibly. Who is we? How can we? Who is the we? Citizens or professionals? So if there's a divide between professional and non-professional content producers, which side is she on? All we are saying is that those who are journalists, those who are citizen journalists must tell us their experiences so that we can learn more about the people we are talking about. Eustace says, I agree. I'm not sure what he agrees to. We all effectively become journalists. We all become journalists the moment we get smartphones. No, we are just citizens. Journalist is a profession like being a doctor, like being a quantity surveyor. Those professions are regulated by their own associations. They build their own communities. There is a profession created among people who believe that once trained, there must be standards. So some people say where there are no standards, where there's no regulation, where there's no government for that profession, then that profession can never rise up to the training. Why would you spend so many years training to be a journalist only to find someone with a smartphone being what you have trained for? So there has to be a discussion around the identity of this profession. What if those who have certificates, who are regulated, behave as if they don't have certificates? And the people without certificates behave and act as if they actually possess the qualifications and they are the best. What if the public looks up to those who don't possess the certificates but write or speak in the language they understand? And can Caller please stick to incompetent rogue journalists? That's a subject, journalists, not other occupation in society. I don't know. Eustace is saying that. Then Elizabeth, it's hard to stop it, knowing just because of technology, not trained to share, but to think what will happen after posting or publishing. How many people gossip without training? Well, have you ever seen gossipers who are trained?
No, gossipers, they just gossip. They're not trained.
Yeah. But Elizabeth is saying that there is you need training to post. True, it's hard because when I was young, we were struggling to pay cameramen to take us a picture. But these days, pictures are being taken everywhere. So again, Elizabeth is learning. So every point she's making, she finds there's another point. So as we dig deeper in a conversation, Elizabeth will run out of points to make. because another point will have come in. So she's saying that things have changed and many people have a weapon now called a camera. They can take pictures as it happens. And if
Yes.
they post the pictures when it happens, others may know it. If it's a famous person you have taken a picture of, then that picture will have value. If a picture is of a nobody, that picture will also have no value. Reporter and journalist are two different things, Mr. Bawere. That's what I'm asking Eustace. What is a reporter? What is a journalist? And you are telling me they are different things. What if I don't know what they are? How can they be different? If I post what I see in the streets with a smartphone, doesn't mean I am journalist. I'm a reporter. What's the difference? What is a reporter then? What is a journalist? Journalists go through the journey of the story. What if those who claim to be journalists never go through the journey of the story? A reporter reports only what they see right there. What if the journalists do the same? They report what they see right there without going back to the whole journey of the story from beginning that you guys with your camera phones. What if those who are trained to be journalists do precisely what you say a reporter must do? That's
And
hence
I'm
we
not
are having
following
this
any of the
conversation.
story, yeah.
So Eustace, we're having this conversation because we are saying nobody has a better knowledge. If you know what a journalist is and what separates a journalist from a reporter, then tell us, then we can put labels around people and say that one is a journalist, that one is a reporter. Then we can pursue excellence. And you can tell us, Eustace, who do you think is a journalist or best exemplifies the profession or the best in the profession? Who is the Maradona? Who is the Ronaldo? Who is the Messi of journalism? Then we can go there and check and talk about it. So Eustace, if you have anyone that you think ought to be known and emulated, that is the purpose of this show. To be able to create a conversation around coffee about what a journalist is and what a journalist is not, what a reporter is and what a reporter is not. Isn't that fair?
Yes, yes.
Go ahead. Wellington, you can go ahead.
I agree with you, Mr. Mawere. One must refrain from expecting others to do certain things, or if they have a comment, they should just views on the issue. That way, we also move forward because no one is going to. There's no expectation on others to act except yourself, except oneself. And then Eustace also said that he distinguished between what a reporter is and what a journalist is, where he says that the journalist follows
No,
through
I
follows the journey of the story, and the reporter just reports events as is. I also agree with that distinction and Eustace's contribution. Yes, it's important for that distinction to be clear, but does that reporter need certification for them to actually do the right job? And then going back to where he says that the caller must stick to the subject of the discussion, which is incompetent rogue journalists. That goes back again to what you said, Mr. M, when you say qualified people are not doing their job well enough. So issues of incompetence arise, issues of unethical behavior arise. So what if unqualified people that, like we've observed on Twitter streets, that we've got people who are not even journalists who are actually doing a great job. People like Wama Gaisa, they are disseminating information, they are stimulating discussion, they are even reporting on info on or breaking news that was not in the public domain. People like Jonathan
already you are
putting
saying
news out there. People like ourselves, individuals, a lot of people are actually doing this. So what does that mean? What if they are competent enough yet they have no certification to show for it? What constitutes journalism schooling? What constitutes journalism education? Are we not having cases where we have schooled journalists who are actually uneducated? And then we have unschooled journalists who are actually educated in journalism. So that is the conversation that we need to think about, Mr. Mayer.
Yeah, so I was just saying is that when you mention names like Wama Gaisa, there are people who say he's not a journalist. He's actually undermining journalism by pretending to be one, but what he's selling is a partisan view.
Yes.
So there is no agreement. So we started a project, for those who are listening, where we have a shared radio platform or content platform. And one of our members, Mr. Chiwasa, has just sent an audio of his first installment. So as we close the show, let's hear what he says. He is a veteran journalist and the trained one. So let's hear what he says.
Awesome.
73 FM Jazz Express. Jazz Express. 1873 FM. This is Jazz Express with Max Chewers. Jazz Express is coming to you from London. Jazz Express. Yes, George Benson opening. Morning, noon, and night, I'm thinking about you. Ain't sleeping right since you've been gone. Till the end of time, we're thinking about you.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Mawere.
Okay.
Keep our family strong, but we were both trying to grow in our own direction. Soon the magic of truth with nothing at all. So don't you think it's about time we had a family reunion? Because I'm losing my mind without you here in my life. Tell me what you want, let's get it together. No more wasting time over what we like. You and I should love each other forever. Family means a lot. So baby, let's make a move.
Hello, Mr. M. Are you still online?
Yeah, we're just listening to Mr. Chiwasa's broadcast.
Hello, Mr. Mawere.
Hello? 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 Hello?
Yes, Mr. Mawere. We didn't hear the contribution of Mr. Chiwasa.
Yeah, it's the music that is playing. It's part of this contribution. It's part of his contribution. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, Mr. Mawere, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's Mr. Chiwasa's broadcast. It's a song.
What's the song?
FM. This is Jazz Express with Max Chivas. Jazz Express. Jazz Express 1873 FM. Jazz Express.
So that's his broadcast there.
Oh, all right. Sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, so he put the songs there for his 5 minutes.
All right. All right. But it would have been interesting to see, since he's a veteran broadcaster, to hear his views on journalism, etc., especially in this new age and the incompetence of even so-called trained journalists. It would be interesting to hear his views, because I think also other people tend to think that their profession, especially trained journalists, that their profession is being undermined by pedestrians or etc. as well.
Yeah. So that's the time flies at the end of our show. That's 10 o'clock. Any last words?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mawere.
Any last words? So if you are watching out there, let's keep on the conversations going. There are no perfect answers. There are no wrong answers. But you are the only one who can give a voice to what your thoughts are. Nobody else can. So if nobody else can use your voice, which is your power, to make the difference by talking to what you would like to see. Thank you.